Welcome to the Grap Up, your monthly blast of cold takes on the world of professional wrestling, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am the intrepid traveler, Mark Robinson, and with me, as always, is the editor of the Wrestling Observer. He is Bryan Rose. Bryan, 2023, it's nearly complete. We've nearly accomplished it. We've nearly beaten it.
This is November.
Yeah, how's your 2023 been in general?
Um, I'm trying to think of like what has happened to me personally this year, and it's like
It's a
not
loaded question,
much.
I understand.
It's like not a lot happened. Um, but in pro wrestling, a bunch of stuff happened. So it's always like I wake up and I look and see what's going on. It's like, oh, that happened. Okay. It's always things like that where I just kind of go, well, the pro wrestling landscape is changing constantly, and things
Mhm.
that I thought would happen did not happen, and things that I didn't think would happen happened. So, I mean, one thing we'll probably get to is the CM Punk situation all year, where that was a big story. Like you could choose like which one you might ask, and the answer would be a lot. There's a lot to choose from when it comes to CM Punk and what happened with him this year. But personally, not a lot happened. I mean, I developed insomnia, but that's about it.
That's always fun.
that,
That's
that's always fun.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Um,
I'm much better with that.
that's
So
good.
there's at least that. But other than that, no. I mean, nothing really happened.
Do you have any plans for 2024? Anything lined up so far?
Um, Not really. I'm doing this day by day and seeing what's going on, but I do have very tentative, yeah, tentative plans to go to Las Vegas for the convention in May. So there's that, and that's probably Double or Nothing weekend because that's
Hmm.
usually when they coincide. And that's about it. I don't think I'm going to go WrestleMania because last year was a lot, and it was in LA, so it was easy to go. And the coming one is in Philadelphia, and that's a little bit tougher to do. So
Have you ever been to Philadelphia before?
I have not. I do kind of want to go, but it's a matter of who's going and what I would do beyond wrestling and stuff like that. And I don't know if I don't know who's going and who's staying, and it might depend on that. But
I mean, at some
right
point
now I have no plans.
you gotta go see the Liberty Bell. That's my one frame of reference for
Yeah.
Philadelphia outside of the show. It's always sunny in Philadelphia.
The first thing I think about isn't the Rocky statue there?
I guess so. Would
I
make
think
sense.
so.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhere there. I think that's where Rocky takes place, somewhere in Pennsylvania. I think it's Philadelphia. I don't
Do you know what? I have not
know.
seen that first Rocky film in
Really?
quite some time.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you never watched it. I'm like,
No,
wow.
I have, but like the Rocky films in general, um, like I'm pretty sure the last one that I don't know if I've even seen four, and I've definitely seen three
Four.
because obviously three has Hogan in it.
Yeah,
Um,
Hulk Hogan.
so I know I've seen those first three, but even then, it's been so
Rocky Four
goddamn
is
long since I've
amazing.
seen them. Yeah.
Rocky Four is an amazing movie, and like, it's a very much an '80s sports movie. Like the first two Rocky films are genuinely moving films. It's about boxing, but it's also about the relationship between Rocky and Adrian. But by three, it's like, okay, now this is more venturing into just a boxing movie.
Hmm.
And then four is like a straight up uh, America versus Russia
Of course.
music
I mean,
video
I
where
mean,
there's a
look, we're
bunch of
we're in the height of
amazing
the Cold War at this
songs. And,
point, so
and yeah, this came out in like 1987 or something. So it was like at right as a Soviet and United States relations were at like a weird tipping point because a few years later the Soviet Union fell
yeah.
and all that. But yeah, it's like a full on '80s music video with some drama in between. Adrian telling Rocky, "You can't do it," and then he goes and he does it.
It's perfect.
So it's
The two encapsulations of the Cold
uh, uh,
War through the medium
yeah,
of film. You've got James Bond, and then you've got Rocky Four. Just
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. It's like a full-on music video where Rocky just goes and trains for forever in the Siberian wilderness or something, and then he goes and he fights Drago, and he avenges. I can't say who dies.
And if he die, I
I
know
can't
if
spoil.
he dies. Yes, yes, yes.
I can't spoil this movie from 35 years ago. But yeah,
And I actually haven't
it's
even
amazing.
seen. I've not seen the Creed films either. I know
I've seen the first one, but not the other two, and
we
I hear they're good.
we spoke about the newest Creed film at some point this year, and I remember Dave and Jack said that like during the making of the film, that like anime was used as an influence, and that apparently some of the shots during like the boxing sequences are very anime in terms of the direction. So,
Hmm,
which had me intrigued, but still not enough to actually go and watch it.
yeah,
But I should put them on the list at some point.
I need to watch the other two because I hear they're good, and I hear that it's a very good follow-up series to Rocky because this is the son of Apollo Creed, and as he I guess goes on in his boxing career.
Yeah,
So
Michael B. Jordan, very good actor. I don't know if
yes,
you heard.
yeah, he is. I have heard that.
Yeah. Speaking of CM Punk, as you mentioned there a minute ago, he made his
Yeah,
return to World Wrestling
he did.
Entertainment at the end of Survivor Series. Triple H did his old NXT end of credits trick to make you think the show was ending, and then
Yeah.
the remastered or kind of cut version of Cult of Personality played, and out came one Phil Brooks. And I mean, where to start with this? We've gone over Punk in terms of everything that happened with AEW, and like in terms of what his next move was going to be. It's fair to say his options were limited.
Yeah.
I heard some people kind of talking about like, oh, maybe he could have had a run in New Japan. It's like, no, no. New Japan are scaling back their operation costs at the moment, and Punk is. I don't think Punk. I mean, he never had any kind of real exposure in Japan. Like I'm sure he
No.
maybe did one or two tours early on in his career, but it's not what he's known for. He is predominantly a North American wrestler, and I don't think his style and him in general. I just don't think it would have worked for that product. There were the reports and the actual like confirmation that Impact had reached out and sent him an offer, and I do think going by just it was either WWE or Impact. Obviously, one of them is more financially lucrative for him than the other. But I do think
Yes.
there's something really fascinating about him, and I don't know if it would have been just a purely ego thing of like, all right, let me take this thing here that's been struggling for a number of years now and really put my stamp, because he really could have done whatever the hell he wanted. He would have had the power to run that company as he sees fit. Um, but he went with WWE. He went back. Um, that podcast with Cole Cabana all those years ago, I guess, would be a really interesting listen. I mean, it's been an interesting to listen back at any point in the past 9 years,
I should
nearly
go back
10
and listen
years.
to that. 'Cause
But
I remember the weekend that came out. It was like Thanksgiving weekend, and I just sat there and listened to it. I'm like, holy crap.
I mean,
That was an amazing thing. And then to see what happened 10 years later, that's also another amazing thing.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure anyone that's listened to this podcast knows that particular podcast, but
Yeah.
um, it really cannot be put in any kind of gentle terms how scorched earth Punk went on
He did.
Vince, Triple H,
Triple
and the
H.
WWE as a whole.
The
So
medical.
yeah, and the medical staff. I can't remember the guy's name. Who is still
Amon.
employed? Haman, yeah, who is still at WWE, which is
Yeah.
the funniest bit of all of this. Um, so with all of that and all the bad blood that happened afterwards, and it's been made kind of apparent and has been noted that, look, this isn't the first time that WWE have got back into business with someone that had been on the outs for however many years, whether it's your Bret Harts, your San Martinos, your Ultimate Warriors. And so that whole like never say never um, ethos that exists, like the idea that Punk would go back, it didn't really surprise me, if I'm being perfectly honest. Partially again because in terms of like opportunities that Punk has at this moment to make, one last big contract and one last kind of big amount of money, there really was nowhere else to go. I
No.
guess my bigger surprise is that WWE on their end decided to actually go for it, because
They didn't
it's
need to.
that's the thing. That is the really interesting part of this is like, 2023 for WWE has been just phenomenal in terms of like their business and
True.
the amount of like people they have on that roster that are whatever you want to determine as over, but going just by the crowd responses, they are over and they are selling tickets
They
and they're
have
doing very,
all
very good business.
Yes, the business is incredible, and they have all their storylines planned out for WrestleMania. We're
Yeah.
seeing them unfold right now. So it's not like Punk was needed to be here and needed because they needed something for WrestleMania. They have all their major WrestleMania matches planned, I am sure already. Because Triple H is someone that, based on what we know in the last year, has really, really long-term booking, and we're seeing all the seeds that have been planted for last year. We're finally starting to get some return on those. So yeah, I mean, CM Punk didn't need to be figured into those plans. So when I heard, I mean, the speculation was just insane about this. From the minute CM Punk was fired from AEW, Survivor Series is in Chicago. It would make all the sense in the world for him to be there. And there were so many people who are usually bad faith people who go after Meltzer and go after Sean Ross Sapp, who complain and say, "Well, your career is on the line because of this." Like based on their reporting that they weren't talking to CM Punk or that the deal wasn't going to happen or whatever. And once it all happened, Triple H himself said, this is something that came together at the very last minute, and I think the contract was signed on that day. So technically, all those reporters were right because no, there hadn't been any deal to bring CM Punk in. And the people who knew, there's maybe about 3 people who knew that negotiations were going on and that it came together at the very last minute. And so I think that reporting was vindicated by them. That they that it wasn't sure that CM Punk would be brought in. I think there was one point where they said CM Punk wasn't being brought in, and I'm sure that at that moment in time that they weren't going to bring CM Punk in. But here's the thing about pro wrestling and news in general: it's all very fluid. What is for sure not happening yesterday might happen today. And for all those bad faith people who want to go after the reporters because they in their heart of hearts think that CM Punk really is going to be there, and then they're vindicated when he comes out at the end of Survivor Series. It's like, well, that wasn't a for sure thing until probably the day of the show or before that, or shortly before that. So it's like I'm just seeing all the speculation, and I'm like, once it all happened, I'm like, good. I am glad CM Punk is here in WWE. I hope he is happy, and I hope he is here for a long time, because if there's one thing I don't want to see a bunch of in 2024 is CM Punk is angry. CM Punk isn't going to be here. And then people are going to be like, well, when is he going to return? Let's look at every Chicago date and point out when when he might return there. Because it's like speculation on CM Punk is just insane. Um, I look at the YouTube stuff, and our highest rated stuff, the stuff with our most views, is everything involving CM Punk in the last year, between the fights, between being sent home, between when is he going to be back, Collision, All Out, the latest fight, getting fired, returning here, returning there. What's he writing about on Instagram? It's just, it's a lot. He I'll give him credit. He's someone who always keeps himself in the news and is very smart about keeping himself in the news, because clearly he wants to be somewhere in pro wrestling right now, because otherwise he wouldn't be doing all of this. And it was made pretty clear pretty quickly that he wanted back in WWE, and he got back in WWE. So great. Be there, and hope he's happy, because the last thing I want to hear is him not being happy anymore. That's I think that's my thoughts on CM Punk returning to WWE. I'm happy for him. I hope he's happy.
I mean,
That
I think
sums it up.
it's fair to say that and look, anything is possible. 3 months time, we might be singing a different song, but it definitely does seem that with the way that WWE is structured at this point, and particularly with the people that are running the shop now, I do feel like even Punk has to be smart enough to know that he needs to kind of choose his words carefully and
Oh yeah,
pick his
this is
battles
not this is
carefully.
not going to be AEW,
No,
where I think everybody knows what the dynamics are in WWE compared to AEW, where I mean, I think he said to himself at several points, I think he made it clear that this was his promotion, and that if he didn't like something, it wasn't going to happen. And that was very much so during the first few weeks of Collision, when he got that stuff rejected by Jack Perry, and of course that led to the thing that led to his ouster from AEW.
I do
That's
like,
not
by the way, that
all that's not going to fly in WWE.
I do like, by the way, that Punk has been fired from one company, started up at another company, and in that time, Jack Perry still hasn't actually returned to
I
television.
know
That's
that's
that's good stuff.
that's uh that's a, that's something. I'm sure he'll
Yeah,
be back soon,
I'm
but
sure he will be.
I think it's a matter of where you put him in creatively. I
Yeah.
think.
So Punk did return, and then was on Raw the next night and cut an 8-minute promo that felt a little bit like, hey, Chat GPT, give me an 8-minute Punk promo, and we'll work with that. It certainly didn't have that fire that Punk had with a number of promos, and I saw a bunch of them
Yeah.
on Twitter over the last like week or so as a reminder of, oh yeah, this guy, when he has the fire in him, there really are a few people as good as him at conveying themselves,
Absolutely.
and with conviction and reality. Um,
Yeah.
and that just wasn't there on Monday. For whatever reason,
It
it could be. I'm not gonna, like, some people were trying to really do like a deep dive into it. Some people were trying to kind of wrap their head around, like, do mental gymnastics that he was doing it on purpose and it's going to play into whatever storyline. I don't really care about any of that. I saw what I saw and it didn't really compel me. And even like 1 week in, like, my interest in Punk in WWE, which wasn't that particularly high to begin with, because my interest in WWE is about as low as it's been. I'm not planning to watch week to week to see what he does, because I just don't think the television's compelling enough to make me want to tune in for it. So, in terms of like what happens going forward, it looks like the plan is him and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania Night 1.
I thought it was going to be for Royal Rumble. Seeds are being planted right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it for the Rumble. I mean, I guess the question then does become like, what do you do for Punk at Mania?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're trying to kind of play your biggest hands, I feel like Punk Rollins for night 1 is a perfect like 1B to the 1A of potentially Cody and Roman. We'll see. And
They could do a thing where they're both in the Rumble, and Punk eliminates him, and then they go off from there. Because I'm thinking of, when is he going to actually like wrestle? This is his
there is
first
that.
match, and it'll probably be the Royal Rumble.
Maybe. I mean, wait, does WWE actually have a PLE for
They do not.
December.
The deadline show on Saturday is it?
That is that I feel like that was the case last year as well because
I think so.
yeah, I feel like since they got rid of the TLC show, which would have been a few years ago now, yeah, it feels like WWE over December is quite kind of it's like the longest stretch between two PLEs.
Yeah. But
Um,
like I guess
yeah,
they don't want to do like a big premium live event anymore and instead focus on building towards the Rumble, which is going to be in this big stadium.
it makes
So
sense.
that
It
makes
does make
sense.
sense. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you probably have Punk whether he has the match with Rollins or he is in the Rumble. Um, and then you go from there. But I don't know, like I feel like the chances of getting the types of because I'm sure like match wise, I'm sure he'll be just as fine as he was in AEW. Just
Yeah.
hopefully he doesn't get injured anymore. But the bigger issue that you
Yeah.
have with Punk is just that fire, those promos, and the kind of handcuffs that are going to be placed on him. Probably to some degree, actually, it might be a benefit for him and for everyone involved. But I can't say I'm particularly compelled about watching week to week to see what he gets up to, being perfectly honest.
I did not think the promo on Monday was like fantastic or anything, but I kind of chalk it up to the fact that this all probably came about very quickly and he probably didn't know what to say. And I'm sure that the I'm home thing was uh fed to him. They told him you can say whatever you want, but you have to say I'm home. 'Cause that's a very WWE thing to say when someone makes a return to say I'm home.
I mean, The Rock did it fucking 10 years ago.
Yes.
Like there are certain parallels between The Rock returning 10 years ago and Punk returning around about roughly, I guess a little bit after, but we'll say within like 10 years as well. I mean,
Yeah.
considering the the kind of like the crux of the Rock Punk angle, there are eerie similarities between Punk and Rock at this point in their careers. Um, And I'm wondering actually, when did Punk? Actually, let me just. I want to check. How old is The Rock? He's
He's
51.
almost 50. Oh, he's
So he was
51.
actually about 4 years younger when he returned in 2013 than Punk is now, which is I don't know. It's something.
Yes.
It's
It's
something.
something.
Yeah. Um. Oh yeah, Ava Rain. I forgot that's a thing. Anyway, so Survivor Series
She's now
itself.
she's now a this week on NXT she's just now Shawn Michaels like assistant that makes matches when he's not there.
Cool.
So she's still
That's
there.
that's
It's just
good.
Ava. It's not Ava Ray.
That's great. I mean, it's better than what she was doing before, I guess. Fuck,
Oh yeah, the Joe Gacy stuff. When we get to the awards, when we do that award show, I got a category I can think of for Joe Gacy
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
if you think the schism stuff was bad, this new stuff that they're giving him is even worse somehow.
I'm not watching enough NXT to know exactly. So,
I wouldn't recommend watching. I mean, I like NXT, but he is not. This stuff is not good. I don't. It's annoying, bad.
anyway, Survivor Series War Games 2023 from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois. With a attendance reported of 17,138, which is about 2,000 up from their last two Survivor Series. So again, speaking in terms of their business, they just
Uh, I
they're
think
selling tickets.
this is the most successful Survivor Series of all time
Yeah,
in terms
which
of
is
sales and revenue.
it also might be the most boring fucking Survivor Series of all time.
Like
I
the key matches were good.
I found it's the interesting thing, and I think we've said this about the last couple of like WWE pay-per-views. It's wild that there's only 5 matches on this card. It's
It's very easy to watch.
do you know
Compared
what?
to
Even
AEW's cards, these are very
even
easy to watch.
even with the 5 matches, I find these shows very difficult to watch.
Really.
Yeah,
See,
I
the
I
weird thing with me is that these shows are just the easiest thing to watch for me, But Full Gear, which is absolutely a better show than Survivor Series, was much harder to watch, even though there was a lot better matches. I think it's more about the pacing. I think the pacing at Survivor Series is much better than AEW, because with WWE you're only committed to those 3 hours and maybe like a 30-minute press conference. For AEW, I have to dedicate the entire afternoon and evening to cover that, because on top of the now 90-minute pre-show, there's the 5-hour pay-per-view, and then there's the 2.5-hour scrum conference where Tony Khan very poorly described how the Continental Classic was going to work.
I
That's
guess
like
we I
eight to
guess
nine
we are coming
hours.
I guess we are coming at it from two very different angles in
Yes,
terms
there's
of,
two very different angles. So for
yeah.
me, watching Survivor Series was the easiest thing in the world compared to Full Gear.
I concede that that is a fair point.
Yeah.
I don't know, the space that exists between like each of these matches and the either the commercials or the product placement or the shitty backstage
Yeah,
segments that also
the
include product
product
placement.
placement is all over the place now, and
Uh,
this you can tell this is not a Vince McMahon thing, because he never wanted that. He never wanted the commercialism all over the ring posts and on the banners and everything. And now it's right there.
yeah,
You're
but
seeing
that called for sponsorship,
a
man.
lot of Slim Jims and a lot of Ruffles on the show.
Yeah,
A lot.
yeah, it's not for me, which does mean that my time to get through these
This is still
shows.
better than the AAA shows where they'll dedicate an entire segment to just their product placement.
Yes,
CMLL, I think CMLL is also guilty of that.
no, that's entirely fair as well. Yeah, it does mean that getting through these shows is also a lot quicker because I
Yeah,
skip out basically all of those segments. But yeah,
same.
we had two War Games matches. I'll be honest, I I'm not the biggest fan of the War Games concept. I didn't grow up on
I
NWA, WCW.
I like the original matches because there's a grittiness to them. But these are like weapons, it's the standard weapons matches that WWE always has on every pay-per-view, but now it's inside two cages or two rings instead of one. And that's something that's hard to get over, because as soon as you see someone scrambling to get a weapon, it's like, do we really need another weapons match?
Yeah.
Is there like any difference between this and any other weapons match that you see on any other WWE pay-per-view? But I thought the way they built the matches were very good. So and the crowd was white hot for all this stuff. This
Oh,
was a very good crowd.
the crowd was insane for this show.
So I thought
Yeah.
they were good matches. The stuff in between,
I think you mentioned the word grittiness there, and I think that's a
yeah.
very appropriate word for, because we've had war games in the past that didn't have anywhere near the amount of weaponry available,
Well, I
but
mean,
were
they need
much,
weapons now because you can't do blood.
yeah, and they were much more violent in the past,
Yeah.
and it kind of felt like the equivalent of when you had the elimination chamber, which is, I go back and I watch that first elimination chamber every now and again, and the way that they approached like the chamber itself as this weapon that could damage and inflict misery, and probably generally did because of the way it was constructed, and obviously they
Yeah.
changed it a few years ago
It's
because of
probably
that.
still not fun to do bumps on some of that stuff.
Probably not. And then when they got round to like the extreme elimination chamber, it felt like it was a fucking cartoon at that point. The kind of grittiness was gone. Now that was obviously
Yeah.
the tail end of a legendarily bad show, which didn't help. And it kind of felt like the equivalent here of like just kind of turning it into a cartoon. And WWE have been doing war games matches now for I think they did like 2, maybe 3 years under the NXT banner before moving it to the main roster. And some of those NXT War Games matches, I think are pretty solid. Actually, I think that there was it the first one was like Sanity, Roddy Strong, and the Authors of Pain, and I think Undisputed Era, and
I
that
think
worked
so.
because you just had a bunch of lumps in there in the Authors of Pain, and everyone was just kind of bouncing around them. And then I think the next year they did Undisputed again, and I remember like Tommaso Ciampa did the fucking like midnight crash or whatever it's called off the top of the cage with Adam Cole through a
I think I
table.
remember that. Yeah.
And that's a pretty spectacular ending to a match.
Yeah.
Although I think Cole worked the next night, which was fucking ridiculous. But anyway,
That's
so I much preferred the NXT War Games matches, and I definitely preferred some of those women's War Games matches because I found the bulk of this women's match to be painfully dull slash choreographed slash
yeah.
just
It
nothing about
was.
it felt convincing.
It
Nothing
it
felt
it,
it
it,
about it felt like there were stakes on the
it
line.
had a very simple way of building towards stuff. And once everybody got in, I thought it became a lot better. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. Io Sky coming off the top rope with the trash can. That was a spot. That
She
was
does like that
amazing.
spot. It's not the
Yeah,
first time, probably won't be the last.
probably won't be.
Yeah.
But
I think my biggest issue with these War Games matches, if the plan is that they're going to be doing these every Survivor Series, is that there's no stakes on the line. You know,
no.
if we'd have come into this and you wanted to do a um
Like let's
the,
say they
the
wanted to split up damage control.
yeah, or
Like
Judgment Day have
or
to
something,
disband,
something where you're like invested in it a little bit more.
or even something
Or
that could actually like relate to the Rumble in terms of like
yeah.
people will get better slots in the Rumble or something, just something, because like the next night on Raw, well, there's the Judgment Day, and they're just kind of doing their thing, and here's like Randy Orton having a match with JD McDonough, and it's like nothing was actually fucking accomplished last night. You wrestled for half an
No.
hour, a team won, but nothing. The storyline didn't progress, and that's kind of been my biggest issue with this kind of era of Triple H is like the.
It's
I'm
very slow. Very
I'm all
slow build.
yeah, I'm all for long-term planning, long-term booking, long-term storytelling. Got no issue with that. But if you have like a major event like Survivor Series and you have these two War Games matches, and at the end of it, you haven't actually fucking accomplished anything. It's like, what was the point of this then? And that's kind of been my biggest issue with a lot of Triple H booking, but certainly this show in particular, and these two matches. It's like you didn't. If I didn't watch these two matches, I wouldn't have had anything different. I wouldn't come into the show or out of the show with any different perspective, if I had or hadn't watched the matches. So that's kind of all I have to say on the two War Games matches. I just found them painfully dull and fairly pointless. Other than Orton returned and he's about 30 pounds heavier, and
God, he's huge.
boy, if only I could look like
He
that when I
he's
hit my
he's
mid
he's
40s.
he's taking his vitamins.
Uh-huh.
Really,
Saying his prayers.
drink his milk and say his prayers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
brother.
Brother. I I did find the Gunther Miz match to be fairly fascinating for the obvious reasons of the Miz is not, I mean, he's a prototypical WWE wrestler,
Yeah,
but not a prototypical opponent for Gunther that's going to kind of rise up to the sort of match that Gunther would have. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having these two go against each
it
other. It does.
was. Yeah, it was
It
fine, but like
Yeah,
I cannot buy the Miz beating Gunther.
yeah.
I just can't. And this entire match was about making you try to believe that. And I could never get into it in that way where I thought, oh, well, Miz is definitely going to beat Gunther now. And it's like, and it is like I don't know. Psychology wise, just was just all off for me. And but the match itself wasn't bad, and the crowd were into the near falls because I guess they too were buying that the Miz might actually beat Gunther, but it didn't happen. But yeah, I just I just couldn't buy it.
I think the match could have worked better if like the Miz had played more into the like shenanigans of trying to beat Gunther through really kind of any means necessary, but certainly the
Yeah,
more kind of sports entertainment route. But they didn't. They kind of had the Miz play more as if like he was trying to square up to Gunther as a wrestler, and that is the
yeah,
problem. Like it doesn't kind of
it's
like
weird.
yeah, because like none of his offense looks in any way convincing.
No,
So that was kind of always doomed to fail. But I did think that the promo they did leading up to the match was kind of interesting with trying to present the Miz as like some sort of not quite the voice of the voiceless, but at least like someone on the people's side, which is pretty much a way that the Miz has never been represented at all throughout his
Yeah.
career.
And the thing is that
But they
now they're trying
tried.
to make Miz a babyface, and it's like that's never worked. He's always been a heel. But the thing with the Miz is I have seen this character and this gimmick for the last 10 years plus, and at this point it's just starting to wane on me. It's like, do we need the Miz around? Like, could we get like a reinvention or something? It's like it's just, I don't know. I can't get into this
I mean,
stuff. I
I
can't
feel
get
like
into
that's
him
been the case
being a
with Miz for the
babyface.
last 10 years.
Yeah. He's a good talker, but he doesn't want me to, he doesn't make me want to see any of his matches because I know how it's going to go, and it's usually not great. This was good. This was good at least, but like, I don't know. And then the next day on Raw, it's like, oh well, I want a rematch, and it's like you lost. Why are we teasing another match between you and Gunther? I don't want to see you win the title. I don't want to see that match again. I don't need it.
Um, I have a question for you, and I
Okay.
feel like I may have asked this last month, or at least the month before. Since she won the belt at WrestleMania, has Rhea Ripley had an interesting match?
No, at the level of that match, which is really good,
Mm-hmm.
an awesome match. But no, not at that level. And again, here with Zoe Stark, and I thought they were going to have a better match than they did. But they just did a match, and it was okay, but wasn't like good. And I don't think they were given a lot of time. Kind of felt like a filler match. It
Yeah, I
just
mean, like Zoe
I
Stark at the
think the
moment
problem,
is.
I think it's kind of like with the Miz, but Zoe Stark is way better than the Miz. But I think nobody thought she was going to win, so the crowd was just kind of like whatever. I think that's the problem. I think not a lot of people think that Rhea Ripley can be beaten right now because I mean, there's like the Nia Jax thing that they're building towards, but like, god damn, I don't want to watch that anytime soon. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, no, I don't think anybody thought that Zoe Stark was going to win here. I think the crowd was just kind of like whatever, and the work was okay, but like nothing really great. It was a match that was just kind of there.
Yeah, I found this match to be painful to get through.
Oh
And it's like Zoe Stark was she's not at the point yet where you can believably believe that Rhea was going to lose to her, and it is the problem that
yeah,
in terms of like the credible challenges they have for Rhea, they haven't really given her any credible challenges. Like she had the 5-way at Crown Jewel, she had the match with Zelina Vega at Backlash. I generally cannot remember another match that she's had in between because I feel like she only wrestles once every 2 months or so.
yeah,
Um, and it just it's been a fairly I mean, she's still incredibly over because like she does have that charisma, that presence about her.
hmm
Um, but it's certainly not for like her in-ring stuff. It's been a very, very underwhelming title reign thus far.
yeah.
I expect it will go to Mania. I don't know who a Mania opponent will be, but
God, I
you,
hope it's not Nia Jax. Please do that at the Rumble.
God, I mean, I don't even
I
want
don't.
it at the.
I think the WrestleMania match is her and Becky.
Um,
But
yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't think that's a combination they've done, and
yeah,
God bless her, Rhea needs like a decent match. So Becky is about as good as you're gonna get for that. I know they teased at the God, was it the night after WrestleMania? I think
there was a
they
tease. There was a
her and
tease
Bianca.
recently. Yeah, they did tease that after WrestleMania. So that could be the match. But I
Yeah.
always thought it was going to be Rhea Ripley and Becky. and Charlotte and Bianca.
Mm.
I always thought those were the two matches that they were going to WrestleMania. And so far, it seems like they're kind of building towards that, or at least going in that direction. But I don't know. They kind of teased Becky and Charlotte the last few weeks, but I don't know. Well, we'll see. There's a lot of things they can do.
We will see. We will see. We have plenty of time between now and the Rumble. Let's bounce over to All Elite Wrestling, November the 18th from the Kia Forum in Inglewood, California. I imagine just a stone's throw from where you live, except that
Yeah,
stone has to get on a plane first before it gets there.
yeah. I have to get on a plane. It's about 5 hours away, and I just decided not to go because my interest in AEW is not as big as it was last year. So I
That's
just did
fair.
not
Look,
go.
we spoke about the booking quite a bit on last month's show. So
Oh yeah, and there's a lot to talk about with this one.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so I getting into kind of like the bulk of this show, we opened up with the six-man tag of Sting, Darby Allin, and Adam Copeland, defeating the team of Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. Luchasaurus now rechristened, I think, as Kill Switch.
Yeah,
And that team going as the Patriarchy. And I do enjoy Christian Cage's countdown on the screen with like all the ways to describe
yeah,
himself. Christian Cage continues to be like for all of the things about AEW and the kind of like sports entertainmentism of the company over the last like 6 months or so, Christian Cage somehow manages to find that perfect balance
yes,
of the sports entertainment stuff, but it doesn't feel out of place in AEW, which really
no,
speaks to just how fucking good he is as a wrestler and as a heel, and just getting it. He just gets it.
he does. I am amazed by how well all of his stuff has been for last year after turning on Jungle Boy. I mean, all the stuff has been really good with him. With him adding Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus or Kill Switch, I think that's his new name. Uh, all that stuff has been really well done, and it's made a lot of sense. And he's very good at being this character. And now they're getting towards the stuff where it's they're building between him and Adam Copeland, and that stuff has been good for the most part. So yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how this develops over the next few months because it's clear, even though they had a match yesterday and it ended inconclusively, I guess you can say, it is clear that they are going to build towards a big uh, match, whether it's like a steel cage match or a weapons match or something. It's clear that they are building towards him and Adam Copeland to a big match at a pay per view. I don't know if that's going to be at World's End or a Revolution or whatever, but that is the direction. And so far, it's been very good and very compelling because Christian, between all the stuff that's been going on in AEW for the last month, with all the last several months, with more, like you said, sports entertainment, the more of that aspect being added to the product, he's very good at being something where it's yes, it's all that drama and soap opera stuff with sports entertainment, but he knows how to make it work in AEW where it doesn't feel like it's copying off of WWE. Whereas the show long storyline that we're going to get into at Full Gear with MGF actually felt like worse than a WWE storyline.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it in a bit, but I have a lot of feelings on that stuff.
So
It's really weird.
I will say, the ratings for last night's show came out, and it was
Oh,
headlined by Adam Copeland going up against Christian Cage, and they only did 827,000 viewers, which I'm pretty sure is down from like the last week and the
and
last
they
couple of
built that
weeks.
that kind of tells you. And again, I think we talked about this before. And as much as I like Adam Copeland as a wrestler, it's not a draw.
No, no,
He
and look,
just isn't.
they had what over? I think they had about 5,000 people in the building for Dynamite.
Yeah,
Collision was a total bust
Collision.
because they did them
I heard
back to
Collision
back.
was terrible.
But it isn't like it's I think it's the first time they've been to the Quebec market and they didn't sell the
Yes,
building out. So
No,
yeah, it's
it's
Adam
not. It's
Copeland.
not. It's not a hot product right now.
I mean,
It just isn't.
it's a combination of that and as you just kind of mentioned there, Adam Copeland, he's never been a draw, and
He hasn't.
this isn't helping. Then it's that kind of
No.
thing of like, for how much money they're probably paying him, I do kind of like worry about the returns they're getting for said investment. So yeah, yeah,
Maybe this storyline will eventually get itself really over, and then people will go and watch it. But like as of right now, it's not. It's not.
no, no,
And
no,
you advertised Edge versus Christian in Montreal, and not a ton of. And I'm saying not a ton. About 5,000 people came, but you didn't sell out the building. You didn't get a good rating. Those are all the barometers that you need to see if you're a draw or not, and it didn't draw as well as they thought they thought it would, at least.
yeah, yeah. We had Orange Cassidy defeat John Moxley to retain the international championship. So we had to play an unfortunate case of hot potato with the belt from when Moxley beat Orange Cassidy at All Out. And Moxley got injured in the match against Phoenix. We dropped the belt to Phoenix. Phoenix got injured, to drop the belt back to Cassidy, and that gets us back to where we are now. I think the worst thing they could have done is put the belt back on Cassidy, because all of the momentum he had coming out of that match with Moxley at All Out has all been but lost. I mean, he's still over, but I don't know. You could have made the argument that he should probably have been in this Continental Classic and at least got to the finals. I feel
Yeah,
like that should have been kind of where he was going forward and kind of moving past the
that's one
international
of the
title.
that's one of the issues with AEW right now, is that they can build people and they can get momentum going, and then they don't know how to continue the momentum,
No.
and people just kind of falter.
Yeah. If you want to make the argument, like maybe he should have had the title match with MJF at World's End or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of ways they could have gone, but what they did
The,
do.
the one long term story they have right now is that MGF and Adam Cole thing,
But
and
that's not
then
even a story at this moment, because it's completely put on ice, and they're going to probably have to bail on it anyway because MJF is injured and out for like
I know,
an undisclosed period of time. So
yeah.
I don't even think that is an actual storyline they have at this point, because of the fact that Cole has his leg in his
Unless you want to
controversy.
buy into the idea that Adam Cole's behind all this, that he's a devil.
I mean, even if he is, it doesn't matter at this point, because again, MJF is out of the picture for a period of time.
Yeah,
So I also
I
don't.
don't know.
Yeah,
A lot of the problems with AEW right now can be attributed to the fact that there are a lot of injuries in that company right now. It's all to
yeah.
the top guys, and they are suffering big time as a result of that.
They have been. I
It's really
mean,
tough.
to be honest, the last like 2 years or so, they seem to be getting snake
They've been
bitten.
riddled,
Yeah, it's quite
riddled
rough.
with injuries, and it is working a tougher style than in WWE, and it's a lot of things, and I don't know. You need to build more stars to try and circumvent that, but it's hard, especially when everybody just gets injured at the same time, and you have 3 shows to fill instead of 2 now.
I,
And I'm watching these collision shows, and they are lacking star power, something fierce,
yeah.
and matches aren't even being announced ahead of time anymore. It's just matches are just happening, or they get announced the day before.
I mean, you talk about
It's
like
tough.
the issue with stars and momentum, and I think about where we were a year and a bit ago, where you had the feud with Daniel Garcia and Bryan Danielson, and
Yeah.
Garcia got that win over Bryan Danielson and was declaring himself the Dragon Slayer, and he had this,
I forgot about all that.
and he
I
had
think
this
that's the
like
issue.
he had this prop like actual kind of elevating feud with Danielson,
Yes.
and then that was meant
He was
to,
getting over.
yeah, he was getting over, and the whole kind of point of that feud was like the whole like, is Garcia a professional wrestler or a sports entertainer?
Yeah.
And it obviously looked like the whole point of it was that the feud with Danielson would eventually lead into him having a feud with Jericho about him
Yeah.
declaring himself a pro wrestler, whatnot.
They
And then it
seemed like
just,
they were building towards that, and then they just became friends again.
And it just exactly, and it's just like, well, what the fuck was the point of any of this then? And look, Garcia is now in the Continental Classic, but he doesn't
But
have
he's
any.
been losing a bunch of matches lately.
I mean, look, people have to lose when you do a round robin tournament. Someone has to lose, and Garcia is young enough that like he'll have his time to shine. But he could have come into this with way more momentum than he had, and it's just because like the whole way that the Jericho Appreciation Society ended was just kind of with a bit of
It just ended 1 week.
yeah, it just
But they separate from Jericho, but they're all still part of like some group that we don't know the name of, or
yeah,
they're loosely associated with one another or something.
it's just
It's
it's
not well thought
just
out.
there's no finality to it, and
No.
it doesn't help anyone involved. They all kind of scream jobbers, which is a shame because like you've got 2.0 there who are genuinely some of the stronger promos in the company.
Yeah.
Anna Jay, who's had this kind of stop-start sort of momentum to her career, and then Garcia, who should be just way more over and way more in a position than just being the guy who does the fucking dance.
Yeah.
He's not quite Fandango yet, but anyway, there's a tangent to say that the Cassidy Moxley match was pretty good, nowhere
It
near
was
to the
good.
level of their first match, and
I don't
probably
think
just a
so.
case of I just don't think this should have been the match. I don't think that if you wanted to do Cassidy and Moxley again at some point, sure. But I don't even think that Cassidy should have been going into this match as the champion. There should have been someone else to take the belt for Phoenix, but here we are.
Yep.
Timeless Tony Storm defeated Hikaru Shida to become a three-time women's world champion with a finish that I will say was not exactly executed with flawless with
No.
flawless execution.
Did she do
And
this in front of the referee? Or the referee
pretty
had to pretend not to look?
much, yes. Yeah, she had
Yeah.
a like a sort of steel tray that was meant to be in her trunks and kind of actually fell
Yes.
out and was just kind of like stuck to her leg. Not a great match, and like
No.
Tony Storm is
It,
very much the gimmick at the moment more than the wrestler.
they love this
And
gimmick. She is
yeah,
on every show doing this gimmick.
I did greatly enjoy I don't know who the hell the guy is. I know the channel, the kind of classic movie
Oh,
channel thing.
Turner Classic Movies, yeah.
Yeah, the guy they had on to kind of present Tony Storm for a match, I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah,
Th- th-
that's the only channel I watch besides wrestling, so I like watching all the old movies and stuff, and so
I would
I like that
I would never
because
have
I knew who
pegged
that
you for that,
was.
Brian.
Really,
No, just
I just like watching Turner Classic Movies after watching wrestling because I don't know, I just like
you
watching
need
old stuff.
look, you need a palate cleanse. That bit I totally get,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I get my palate cleanses in like guess playing games and whatnot. But like, is this something like
I
did
do
you
that
grow up
too.
in the household? Like, did your parents show you like a bunch of classic movies, or just it's just
No,
no?
I don't know, it's just something I gravitated towards. I remember doing a report on Charlie Chaplin in college, and that's kind of like because I wanted to do a report on something. I think it was like a pop culture kind of class where you like go over stuff from like the 20s through the 2000s or whatever. So I wanted to pick something that I thought would be interesting, so I picked like silent movies, and then I kind of gravitated towards Chaplin, and I watched all those movies, and then over time it just kind of became like, yeah, I want to watch stuff from that era, and so and Turner Classic Movies always airs that kind of stuff. So I eventually got towards watching that channel and on all the stuff from the 50s and 60s that they air a lot. Yeah, I'm very much into that now. That's like the only channel I watch aside from all the stuff I need to watch for wrestling.
All right, that's something new that I've learned about you. Does he do like an introduction before every film?
Yeah, he's the one who does it during the prime time hours.
Okay,
Like they have hosts during the day. They introduce the day movies, and then once it gets into like the prime time hours, he's the one who does all the feature presentation stuff
right,
for
right.
the theme of the night.
It's fair to say that all of this is far more interesting than the actual match itself.
Oh yeah, this is way more interesting than and the match was not that great, and I like the Tony Storm character because of all the old Hollywood stuff and all the references. I kind of like that, but The kid, I don't know. It feels like it's kind of like too much at the same time, but this is AEW now. This is that. This is what they do. They once they find a character for someone, they really go into it, and you can tell Tony Khan really, really, really loves this character because if you watch the press conference after the show, he was reading a letter that Tony Storm apparently wrote why she couldn't be there. Uh, and he was laughing, and he could barely contain himself reading this letter that she wrote. So he really loves it, and you can tell because she's on every show. She's on Rampage, she's on Collision, she's on Dynamite doing this shtick, and like I'm okay with it, but like I think I'm more okay with it now that she's the women's champion. But she was getting a lot more attention than Hikaru Shida, who was just defending the title against random people on Dynamite. I was kind of thinking, like, well, why isn't she getting the title match? And then she got the title match and she won. So now I
It
guess I'm
just,
okay with it. But yeah,
I think among the many issues that I have with a lot of this stuff is specific to the women's division is like considering Tony Storm was part of the Outcasts, and then she went off and did her own thing and lost her mind and all that. It's like, would it have not been better to play this off by having her beat Soraya for the belt? Like it feels like
yeah.
this Sheeta reign that came in between.
This Sheeta reign doesn't make any sense
It
unless
didn't
they
need
just
to
didn't want to
exist.
do, unless they didn't want to do Soraya and Tony Storm right at that moment. But that would have been the match to do.
Yeah. Like
So
sometimes,
I
like
don't.
there's just a match that you have to do in there, and it might not be lined up perfectly when, but it's
Like
the
I
logical
get
match to
why
do.
they had Soraya win at All In. So the match at Full Gear should have been Soraya and Tony Storm, but they just randomly had her lose the title to Hikaru Shida.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think is fine, but like they did not push her or made her feel like she's the champion of the entire division because it was
no,
all the focus was on Tony Storm's character.
yeah. This run did nothing for Sheeta at all, and if
Yeah.
anything, like, it actually um degressed her. And I think for her, she's at the point where like a heel turn is the only thing that she can kind of gravitate towards, because I feel like
I'm
just
thinking that too.
yeah, this really kind of cut the legs off of her, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't that great of a match. You had a four-way tag ladder match for the titles. I'm over ladder matches. This was a pretty spectacular one, in fairness. There were a
Yeah, I
couple of
was
unique
not
spots, but I
into
just don't
this
care
match at
for it.
all from the start because they just add a ladder stipulation at the very last minute. I think it was on Collision the day before, and I'm like, boy, if there's a match I don't want to see for a long, long time, it is a ladder match because both companies like to use this ladder stipulation to a ridiculous degree. But to their credit, they worked very hard here. Brody King took some amazing bumps in this match. Um, just everybody worked hard, and there was a bunch of crazy spots, and they made this into a memorable ladder match, which is hard to do these days for me because I am just so over the ladder match. But no, they made this work, and they worked hard, and it ended up being one of the better matches of the night. But not the best match, but one of the better matches.
Yeah, no, again, it was spectacular, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. I'd rather have like Starks and Bill go up against any of these three teams as like just a standard tag
Yeah,
match,
just
and
a standard tag match. Yeah.
I feel like that's just going to be
They
the
feel we feel like they have to do a four-way ladder something on every show, and I don't think you need that on every show.
the tag division has continued to frustrate me with how often the pay-per-view match is some sort of like multi-man match. We've had a number of like three-way tag team matches or four-way tag team matches, and now this ladder four-way tag match. And it's just like you've got probably the strongest tag division in the world.
Yeah,
Accentuate that and just have like really fucking good tag matches like you were doing in the first kind of year or two of the promotion's existence. It's very frustrating. And again, just because of the talent that's involved. Julia Hart is your new TBS champion, defeating Statlander and Sky Blue when she pinned Sky Blue. So Statlander didn't actually get pinned to keep her strong. Julia Hart has improved. She's
Yeah.
certainly
Yes.
way better than she was in her cheerleading gimmick.
And during the scrum, she said that she only had like about 5 matches before she joined AEW.
Yeah, that's
So
an incredible level of progression
yeah.
for where she is at this point, especially compared to someone like a Jade Cargill who wrestled a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I do like Statlander. I'd been kind of happy to keep the belt on her, but hopefully this means that she'll move on to something else. But again, this is the issue: is like now she hasn't got the belt. Will they kind of be able to find a focus for her? Because Statlander's one of the stronger wrestlers they have, like female wrestlers on the roster, and the
Yeah.
last thing they want to be doing is having her kind of down cycle down the card. Where really what they should be doing is just kind of keeping that momentum going. So
Yeah.
that's my concern.
I thought this was a much better match than I thought it would be. Because on paper, it didn't sound like a tremendous match. But I mean, the near falls were great towards the end here. I think Sky Blue has improved a lot too since she got signed.
She has her moments. She's not
Yeah,
perfect. She has her moments.
she's not perfect by any means, but she's better than she was day one.
But I
You know,
have to say, has anyone had more title opportunities in this company than Sky Blue? Because I do
they
feel like
like
every three
pushing her.
months.
She's another one that's on nearly every show, and she has a spooky character.
Yeah, well, I
So
don't think
like,
it's quite
okay,
spooky. I feel like it's more like edgelord. It's
guess.
it was spooky for a minute, and then it was just like I'm now edgy and I wear face paint because all female wrestlers have to have face paint or fucking a very extensive makeup job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like she had a fucking women's title match last night. Only several weeks removed from this
Yeah.
TBS opportunity. There you go.
They like pushing her. So, and she's not bad, but I'm thinking like, where's Willow Nightingale? She had all this momentum back at the Owen Hart tournament, and they've just been like, she's on TV, but like she's not the focus on anything. I think now she's feuding with Mercedes Martinez. Like, well, where did and then she had that really great match with Athena on the Ring of Honor pay per view a few months
I
ago, and they
That
never
is what I
followed
was
up
just
on
going to mention.
that.
Yep, that's the thing.
It's like,
After
why? Why?
after that match, and considering she didn't win the Strong Women's Championship in the way that was intended, but hey, she still came out with that belt. It's like just push her to the fucking moon. It's
She
insane.
has something that nobody on that roster has, and she connects with the fans and she gets over.
Yeah,
It's amazing to me that they haven't done anything with that because that's so hard to do in pro wrestling.
yep.
Is to get over on that kind of level with people, and when you don't do anything with that, people lose interest. And for her, she comes across so likable, and that's a really hard thing to do in pro wrestling is to develop that kind of connection, and you're just doing nothing with it. And that's amazing to me. That's like I don't want to compare it to Zack Ryder because I think she has a connection way stronger with the fans than Zack Ryder had. But like when Zack Ryder got over and he developed something with the fans, WWE just went out of their way to to kill it, and eventually they did. But
Uh,
AEW's not doing that with her,
no,
but
I
they're
mean,
also not doing anything with her, and she's just
yeah,
kind of there.
I think you can look at like the original incarnation of Bailey as
Yes,
a wrestler who was just incredibly likable and got over being an incredibly likable
yes,
wrestler and just put in personality. And typically enough, the main roster and Vince fucked that up, but here we are. And I
yeah.
don't think
It's
Willow.
it's kind of funny because I'm thinking of that, and I'm thinking like they're kind of eventually setting towards a face turn for Bailey, because you see where the damage control stuff is going,
Yeah,
and it's also Sami Zayn because if you remember, Sami Zayn got called up, and they fucked him up,
yeah,
and then
yep.
for years, and now he's the most over babyface on the roster once Triple H took over. It's kind of amazing how the how the Bailey and the Sami Zayn stuff, which was some of the most over stuff in NXT back when they were there, and they
Mhm.
were easily two of the biggest baby faces that were, and they both had that quality that is so hard to get. And then Vince McMahon gets a hold of them, and he doesn't know what to do with a babyface. He didn't know how to book babyfaces for a long time, and he just fucked them up. And
Yeah.
Triple H is undoing all that. It's kind of amazing.
It's just I think the thing, and look, I'm not here to scream about how many women's matches needs to be on a particular card or whatever, but I do think that the women's roster solely exists in a what is the women's title program, and oh, I guess we're doing something with the TBS title. Here's a random match
Yeah.
on a Dynamite or whatever. And I do feel like that with Willow specifically, and probably Britt Baker, because you can't find with a
Where's
fucking
she
search
been?
warrant at the moment. Ah, don't.
She hasn't been
Um,
on TV in months.
no, I know people keep talking about like the Devil and Adam Cole, and maybe she's
I,
related to
I
that.
I'm
Maybe.
I'm I assume that's the thing, but once that Devil storyline comes out, we're gonna and we find out who it is. It's probably gonna be an eye opener to see where they're at.
Yeah.
Because
But
if it's not them, then it's like, what the hell is the story here?
yeah, but what I was
It's
gonna
really
say is
weird.
that I feel like Willow Nightingale should just be in a continuous like loop of feuds with different
Yes.
wrestlers, and like that's her thing. And then at whatever point, you want to push it. But just man, she should be on on television most weeks.
She
It's
should be one of the focal stars of the division, and she's not, which
yeah.
baffles me.
But at least someone they are recognizing as a star and pushing is Swerve Strickland, who defeated
Yeah.
Hangman Adam Page in quite the Texas Death Match.
Oh wow, it's God.
This
I
fucking
didn't
thing.
think they could do something as bloody and as gross as they did, but they did. Oh man, and
Um,
boy, they got a lot of feedback on this one.
yeah, I mean, I thought that the Moxley Page match from God, when was that? Was that Double or Nothing or was it Revolution? It was one of the two. It
I
might have been
forget, but I
Revolution.
remember the match because
Yeah.
that was
To be,
also a very bloody match.
and I was thinking, it's like, right, that's about as violent as we can get for AEW.
Oh no,
And Paige heard that comment and went, hold my beer, and decided to drink the blood of Swerve Strickland.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, for those out there who are squeamish or like want to bang on about television rights and this or that, I mean, I don't really give a shit for any of that because that's not my particular lens of which I view wrestling. I just saw it as like, well, that man's fucking hardcore, and that man is bleeding buckets and is also hardcore. Yay, thumbs up! I like all of this.
yeah.
But I understand if you're squeamish to it. That look, if you're
I
squeamish and you found it uncomfortable to watch, that's fine. But you know what?
I thought it
Sometimes
would. Yeah,
things need to be uncomfortable.
true. At the same time, I'm like, there are so many diseases you can get from drinking someone else's blood. I think, and I don't know what Swerve and Hangman what they have or whatever, but like, no matter what, there's like situations where I'm not sure how to say this, but like, there are so many diseases out there you can get from drinking someone else's blood,
No, no, you're right. You
and
are right.
like, it's gross, and that match would have been just as good without the spot. But I'm
You
not going
are
to freak
right.
out over it. At the same time, I'm not going to freak out about it because I'm sure. I don't know. I'm okay with it, I guess, but like, I don't need to see it. You
Look,
know?
you are right about the spot and that the match itself will still probably have been great and without the spot. But I do think that that spot I think that spot did bring the match to another level in terms of really showing the kind of escalation of where
Yeah.
Adam Page's mindset in particular was at going into this thing. Um, because the build up had its problems and it had its like
There was
sports
criticism that
entertainmentness.
there's criticism because they did the angle where Swerve went into his house and went into his son's bedroom and all that, and that's I don't like those storylines. I think that's so hokey, and I don't think I've seen any storyline in WWE or AEW where they go into someone's home I never think that's a good storyline. I think it's
Yeah.
just I don't know how to put it, but it's like there's a certain believability to this stuff, and once you do that, it's like I can't buy into this. Why isn't Swerve Strickland arrested? You
Yeah.
know, why wasn't Seth Rollins arrested when he went to Edge's house a couple of years ago, or Triple H and Randy Orton before
And
that? It's
and
all
and
very silly. I can't buy that no police would be involved in that.
yeah, but here's the thing. Here is the difference between those two, because I am fully in agreement. The difference is, like, when Triple H and Orton did that whole thing, the payoff for that was a really boring
Oh,
half an
God,
hour
that
main event.
match was boring.
Yeah,
That was one of the most boring main events in WrestleMania. And
yeah.
like, there's been plenty of bad WrestleMania main
Oh
events,
no, but I mean, look,
but that was boring.
I went to the most boring one, which was Roman and Triple H, but Triple H and
That
Randy
was
Orton is
boring.
pretty close as well. And like,
I whenever I think of Roman Reigns and Triple H, I think which was more boring, that match or Triple H and Randy Orton.
yeah, that's it. It comes down to those two, and then there's no argument about it. With Edge and Seth Rollins, at least that led to Hell in a
That
Cell.
was a much better match.
Yeah. So and there was at least an escalation to arguably one of their more violent matches. But even with all of that, none of that compares to Adam Page and the way that he responded to admittedly a very hokey angle, but his response to it, that part of it came from a very real place of a father trying to protect his child, and the way that he approached Swerve from that point onwards. And even like, in the follow-up promo that he had this week on Dynamite, where he, was like, look, it took 3 men to beat me, but you beat me, fair enough. But you still came into my home, and I'm basically like, I'm fucking coming for you still. So that part of it makes me okay with the hokiness of the angle, because the actual follow-up to
Yeah.
it came from like a very real place. So it made me have less of an issue with it. But I this match, I don't know. I'm not saying that you should be having this kind of match often. In fact, I probably say you really don't, for the sake of everyone
I'm good with this
involved.
for once a year.
Yeah, yeah. Um, if anything, it just makes me sad that like we just haven't had Paige wrestle that much this year.
I
Um,
know it seems like whenever they start going with him, he just vanishes for a few weeks,
yeah,
and then he
and
goes towards another direction.
I
Kind of
just
weird.
I just I don't know. I've said from the get go that I would have had him beat Punk, and I would have continued to build the company around him. And it does kind of feel like he's gotten lost at points over like the 5 years or so this company has existed. Um, but they continue. He had a promo, an exchange with MJF. So I'm hoping that at some point over the next year he will get back into the title picture. But I love this match. I loved everything about this match. I loved
I didn't
its
like the
pure.
interference.
Um,
I hated that interference spot because it's like I am so over interference finishes in both companies. They both could do these interference finishes a lot. The last thing I needed to see was Brian Cage go out there and do spots with Hangman. It's like I don't need to see that. I don't
I
want to see that.
I
This match did
get
not
it.
need that.
I get it. I mean, I will say that um look, Swerve is still the bad guy. He is still the heel,
Yeah.
and he's going to win this match. And he did win the match of his own accord. Like, it was him doing the thing that won the match. And I will always take, a heel has a second or a third that comes in to interfere, and then several minutes later the match actually ends because the heel still won of his own accord. Like, I can understand the frustration with that. That's absolutely fine. But I think I had less of an issue with it just because, like, at the end of the day, it was still Swerve having to literally hang Page to beat him. So but it's totally like a fair criticism if that kind of knocked out the match down a little bit. But this was still, yeah, by far one of my favorite things of this year. And hey, they haven't fucked up the momentum with Swerve yet, because he's now 3-0 in the Continental Classic, and we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Uh, Golden Jets defeated the Young Bucks. this match was pretty good. Like, look, you got four as solid hands as you can get, and I think that this was a very competent match. Nothing overly memorable, but I think everyone's work involved was solid.
It was a very good match that had a follow. Oh, it was one of the better matches of the year.
Yeah.
So they had a lot to do to get the crowd back into it, and they got back into it. So good for them. The Young Bucks, I guess, are turning heel. I guess they're going to come back as heels.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like they've gone back and forth in terms of this heel face dynamic
Yeah.
about as many times as the Big Show did in the
The
mid
question is,
2010s.
why did you go through all that stuff of reuniting the Elite just for them to do a heel turn a few months later?
I mean, I think that speaks to some of the long-term planning that is or isn't being done with certain wrestlers. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a totally legit question, and there were kind of echoes of like Jericho's heel turn in WCW in like '97 with the kind of slamming of the chair on the steel post and just the kind of general acting like a bit of a bit of a twat,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. But yeah, it does kind of lose a little bit of the edge because we've already gone through, I think, 2 or 3 heel turns with the Bucks at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole idea that I'd read about, the idea that like they will do a heel stable with them and Brandon Cutler and Colt Cabana doesn't particularly have me wanting, if I'm
It
being
doesn't
perfectly honest.
it doesn't light my world on fire.
No,
We'll
no.
see though. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And then finally in the main event, MJF defeated Jay White to retain the AEW World Championship in a Steve Austin 1999 classic.
This was straight out of 1998 WWF.
No. It's
But no,
99
but this it was
specifically.
1999.
Yeah, oh yeah. Trust me.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably somewhere between the two. I feel like
So
99 was like
we should
full on
talk about the show
hokiness,
long
but
storyline
yes,
where
yes, yes, yes.
MGF has to wrestle by himself. No, he teams with Samoa Joe against
The
the
guns.
Guns.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the match, Adam Cole just comes out, and the Guns get distracted, and MGF wins, I think. And then somewhere, I think the Guns attacked MGF, and they Pillmanized his leg. It was his leg, right?
It was his leg. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it was his leg. So they go to the ambulance because he's hurt, and Adam Cole couldn't do anything. He had to sit there and watch. And MGF tells Adam Cole, "Don't let them take my title away from me." So Adam Cole is conflicted. He's like, "What should I do?" And eventually he says that Tony Khan has agreed to put him in the main event of all. What was it? All not all out. Full Gear.
Okay.
He's going to be in the main event of Full Gear. And this casts Tony Khan as a real person who does not care about the health of his wrestlers, because why on earth, like, I'm just thinking about this, why on earth would anyone put someone like Adam Cole, who has a very serious knee injury and is out for months, who just has surgery, why would you put him in the main event of your show? Why would anyone agree to that? Nobody knows why. It doesn't make any sense.
Even before that, more specifically, how the hell, if MJF wouldn't be cleared to wrestle the match, how the hell is Adam Cole going to be cleared to wrestle this match? Just on the purely
Exactly.
like
What
the
doctor would clear
physicians
Adam
and
Cole?
yeah, no one would. No one would.
No one would. No
Yeah.
one would. So this storyline did not make any sense.
No.
Um, they built a show around the idea that you might not see the main event, which is really bad, really, when you
Yep.
think about it.
That's always
Because
fun.
why would you advertise and push a match for months and then tease on the day of that the match might not be happening? That that's baffling to me. It was a storyline that did not go well. It was not a well executed story. It was a haphazard kind of story that didn't make any sense. And all it built towards was for MGF to come out in the main event in the ambulance, like he was Steve Austin in 1999 WWF, where every other week there was a storyline involving him driving a car, some sort of car, and this week it was the ambulance. And he comes out, and they have the match. And to their credit, the main event match, when you just look at it without any context, it was a very good match. And I think the only reason, actually, when you think about it, the only reason why they did it was because nobody thought that Jay White had a chance of winning the title. And they did the storyline for you to get the idea that, well, Jay White actually might be the champion at the end of the show. Which brings the question, why are we doing Jay White and MJF on a pay-per-view? Because I don't think anybody thought from day one that Jay White had any chance of winning the title. And I think they found that out the day of, and they did the storyline. That didn't make any sense at all, just to give you the idea that Jay White actually might win the title.
You don't think MJF had this lined out for at least a couple of weeks that he wanted to do this?
I think he wanted to go right down to the ambulance. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, it's obviously, that they played the whole like Jay White stealing the belt and walking around with it for a couple of weeks, declaring himself the champion. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that part of the reason, or the significant reason why no one would buy that he would win this match, is because of the ongoing issue that is the one storyline they have, which is MJF and Adam Cole. And the problem that you have when you build a storyline around something like that involves the world title is that everyone is obviously waiting for like the turn or what the screw or whatever the hell thing is going to happen. And until you get to that point, which obviously is on hold because Adam Cole is injured, no one that challenges for the belt is going to be considered, as a legitimate chance of them winning it. Now it's going to be different.
Joe, though.
Well, this is going to be different because obviously now MJF is injured. So, it's kind of their hands are tied. They probably actually do. I swear to God, if MJF somehow comes out of that match and is still the world champion and then is, injured, like off the shelf for however long, but like retains the belt in flukes, like if he is so fucking committed to this Adam Cole storyline and seeing it through one guy shattering his leg into several pieces and whatever Max's injury is, like that is a level of stubbornness and sacrificing the company as a whole for this storyline that isn't that particularly fucking interesting anyway. And I think
the main interest is who the devil ends up being.
That's
just what they're banking it on.
All I'm going to say is that I thought that MJF was a lot smarter than he's come across over the last year or so. I thought he had his sensibilities about him, going through, the feud with Cody to the feud with CM Punk. I thought he was a lot smarter than it seems that he is. And all I've seen over the last year is someone that is just desperate to play out his like late 90s fantasies and sensibilities. And it's so jarring. And it's so
it's
to
like
the detriment of the rest
like
of the
a
product.
mishmash of 80s Hulk Hogan and 90s Steve Austin. And it's like, I guess you can do that in AEW because it's so different from everybody else, but it's like you're kind of getting towards the very silly nature of it. And it feels like WWE. And that's the thing, it feels like WWE. And the last thing AEW needs to do at this moment in time, where they're clearly number 2 and business isn't that great, is to come off as trying to be more WWE. That's the last thing you need to do. When TNA went head to head with WWE, they brought in all the stars from the past, and their idea was to emulate WWE. And how did that go for them? It went very badly for them. The last thing you need to do is to try and copy WWE ideas and try and make them your own, because once you start doing that, you're just trying to be a company that you're not. And that's not, when I see AEW, the last thing I want to see is WWE, because I see 5 hours plus of WWE every week. I don't need to see another 5 hours on a pay-per-view or another 5 hours on any AEW programming. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's weird for me to think that now that AEW is clearly number 2, and they are clearly lacking it in momentum. Their idea is, well, let's do more WWE stuff. And it's like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree with any of that. But we'll put that to the side for now. But sticking with AEW, the one thing that we did have announced that is taking place as we speak is the Continental Classic. For the first time in the longest time that I can think of, we have a round robin G1 style tournament here in a North American promotion that has 12 participants. And the winner of it becomes the AEW Continental Champion. Now
I don't like this idea. Is so weird.
So
I have a lot of questions.
I also have many questions. So you had the announcement of the Continental Classic, and that Bryan Danielson was going to be the first participant. Cool, great,
yes.
Right? That's it. That's a good start.
Yes.
Going to take place over a bunch of weeks, and then it's going to end with this new World's End pay-per-view. Fine, sure, whatever. And then we get, like the participants. We've got Andrade in there, and Eddie Kingston, and Brody King, and Daniel Garcia, and Roosh, and Moxley. And it's like, all right, cool. There's not everyone in here that I would want, but you've got a nice blend.
It's a great tournament.
Some people you have to have pin eaters. Like, that's just the way it goes. So cool, all of that. And then it's announced that Eddie Kingston is going to be defending his Ring of Honor World Championship and his New Japan Strong Championship. And there's going to be a new belt that's going to make up this triple crown championship.
Yes.
And then it's like, all right, so is this now? We now have 4 men's singles championships in AEW. Are we consolidating these in any way? Is this now more important than the World Heavyweight title? Is this a thing that's specific to AEW, or is going to be defended in Ring of Honor, which doesn't really kind of count as anything, and New Japan Strong? Why would you do this? Why would you just not have it be a?
Why are we creating a brand new title just to unify it with 2 other titles?
Why would you not just have like, hey, here's a big trophy and you get a shot at the heavyweight title at whatever
That makes all the more sense in the world. That's what happens in the G1.
Yeah, no?
Whoever wins the G1 is virtually certain to challenge the winner at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
Or the champion at the Tokyo Dome. It's that simple. You can just say you get the winner of this tournament gets a future title shot, maybe on Dynamite, maybe on a pay-per-view, whatever. Instead, it's this weird convoluted thing where you're going to combine the Ring of Honor title and the New Japan Strong title with a brand new title that you are creating, so you can say that this is a Triple Crown title. I guess like All Japan's Triple Crown title. And it's like, okay, why are we making more titles? And then Tony Khan in the press conference said, no, it's consolidating them. We're consolidating these titles into one title. And it's like, okay, I can get the 2 titles that already exist. I guess New Japan's fine with it. But like, why are we creating a brand new title that they haven't even shown off yet? It's just it's under a black bag. We're not going to see it, I guess, until the pay-per-view. Why are we creating a brand new title when we already have so many other titles in New Japan or Ring of Honor or AEW? All of them, really. They all have too many titles. But why are we making another title? There's already so many titles. I mean, and how significant is this Triple Crown title going to be? Are we going to see it defended on shows? Are we going to see it? It's all thinking way too much. Just way too much thought is being put into this when it's so much easier to just say the winner gets a world title shot. It's they're making it far more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, and it does just again, like, are you gonna have 4 men's singles titles? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous enough that you got the TNT and the international title walking around. Like, they should have been consolidated. Well,
yes,
I don't think the international title should have ever existed in the first place, but here we are. So they got a bunch of issues that they need to work through. And
Yeah.
look, at the end of the day, we have got this tournament. I think there's been a couple of solid matches. Kingston and Danielson from Collision last Saturday was a
That
very
was
good
really good.
match.
Brody King
I
and Claudio I thought was a really good match too.
very, very good. The Roosh and Moxley match from this week was good fun, as well as Briscoe and Swerve, which I think is actually the best match of the tournament so far. Um, no like proper like match of the year contender so far.
No.
Hopefully like as we get towards the latter part of this tournament that we'll start to see them come through. Um, I'm hoping that I'm hoping at the very least we get this and then they kind of like expand on this. And my hope would be that we get like a tag team version of this and a women's version of this at some point next year as well. Like there's no reason not to,
Yeah.
because look, at the end of the day, you've got 5 hours of television that you need to fill up every week. So a 6 week tournament like this is the easiest way to just justify having content filled on these shows.
Yeah.
It gives me a reason to check out Collision, because otherwise I've got no fucking reason to watch that show. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's something. And if we'd had it a couple of years ago, I feel like it would have been brought out and executed and communicated a lot stronger than what we have.
Yes, they
Um,
didn't announce the participants, the full list of participants until the date of the show.
yes,
Which is
yes,
like, this isn't the G1 because they would
no,
at least announce this like a few weeks before.
yeah. Look,
It's very bad.
the G1 in its incarnation now is very different to the G1 from 30 years ago or so. So,
Yeah.
look, these things can have teething problems, but yeah, it's not exactly how I would have liked to have seen it rolled out, but it is here, and we're getting some pretty decent matches, and that has to count for something. So,
Yeah.
that is that. The only other thing of note I was going to bring up here before we wrap up is Shota Umino versus Will Ospreay. That was from Power Struggle, the end of the Super Junior Tag Tour. These two had a match for the IWGP UK/US Heavyweight Championship, and I gotta say, probably up to this point, like the best match I've seen Shota Umino have. I think Dave gave it some bonkers rating. That
Like
didn't
5 1/4,
something like
something
that.
like that.
Look, if you want to go 5 stars, that's fine. But past that, I don't know what we're doing. I think I went like 4 3/4 on it.
Well, I don't go past 5.
No,
So
no, and no one should really.
five,
But here
well,
we
when
are.
I give out 5, that means that is a match of the year candidate.
Yes, yes. But this thing accomplished more than anything else. It accomplished that, like, hey, this Umino guy, because the jury had been out for the last year or two, really, about like what this guy's deal was. Being kind of this weird hybrid of bits of Naito and bits of Tanahashi, and not really kind of forging out what his own identity is. And he still has work to do in that area. But then keep in mind that Naito didn't find his like Los Ingobernables kind of character till his ungovernable character for a few years. Then
Yeah.
even Nakamura, he didn't become
Nakamura
what people
Nakamura was not charismatic, and then he went to Mexico, and somewhere he finds charisma, then came back and was one of the most charismatic people in pro wrestling.
exactly. So look, people don't have to, have it figured out like that. But crucially, what can help you in terms of getting to that next level is by just having some banging matches. And look, if you're going to do it with anyone, Will Ospreay is the person to help you get there. And these two went for like 40 minutes in a match that went way harder than I think anyone was intending or expecting. And by far was like the most kind of poised and um, just the kind of like that big match spectacle that New Japan does. This was the first time that you really felt like Umino in a single setting, at least anyway, because he's had a couple of like 6-man tags here and there that have been really good, but just on a single setting, this was like the best thing for his career to go toe to toe with Ospreay for 40 minutes, and is really genuinely like worth checking out because it's, I mean, I don't know if it's the best New Japan match of the year. I can't think off the top of my head. Like it hasn't been like the strongest year for New Japan in terms of like output. So it's I think it's going to be top five, maybe top three for sure. But as Osprey's like New Japan full-time New Japan career starts to dwindle down, as I guess the one thing we forgot to mention is he has signed with
He signed
AEW,
with AEW.
but he's got a couple of months to go till that wraps up. So look, he didn't have to go out here and wrestle like this hard and for this long, but it does speak to his work ethic and the type of like output that he wants to provide to people. So this match, phenomenal, really worth checking out. We'll see long term like how this works out for Shota. He still has some ways to go. It does still feel like Suji is the one of the three of these new Musketeers that has like the most kind of put together so far, and it's the most of the three that feels like his own kind of unique identity. Because Ren Narita still looks like a mini Shibata, and Umino has kind of like a mini Tanahashi kind of vibe to him. So I'm sure they'll get there. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. So that is my recommendation for anyone.
Yeah, I did not watch it. It's too much pro wrestling to watch.
I know you have a rough time of it, but maybe skip out on one of your classic films and slot this in for 40 minutes.
I know. I need to. I need to watch. I need to watch that. I need to watch that match for sure.
Yeah.
I need to watch any match that gets like that kind of rating.
5 3/4 rating or whatever.
Something like that.
But we'll leave it there for this month. But before we leave, Brian, as always, I do want to check in with you and see who your wrestler for the month of November would be.
I'd go with Swerve. I think he's really proven himself in the last month. Between the match at Full Gear, between the matches during the Continental Classic, I think definitely he's someone to watch because he's bringing himself up to another level with all the stuff he's been doing, and I am hoping that AEW continues to go in that direction with him. But then I just think about all the other stuff, all the other people who stepped up and then they kind of get put to the side. I don't think you need to Swerve though. He's somebody who should be challenging for the AEW World Title in the next month. Not next month, but the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fully in agreement. I'd also go Swerve for all the reasons mentioned. You got a match of the month for November.
Probably that death match. I can't forget it. Like it's not something that I would go out of my way to watch all the time, but I can't fault them for putting on the kind of match that they did. It was a very bloody, very graphic, but at the same time completely mesmerizing and fascinating and compelling. That's I would have loved this a lot more if they did not do the interference spot. But I mean, this was definitely up there with matches for this year. It would probably be in my top 10.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's probably my top 3. Yeah, I went 5 on this, and it just that believability of a violent spectacle. And look, it's not the first time we've seen Swerve do this type of match. You think back to that Art of War match with AR Fox in Lucha Underground. The man has the ability to get violent, and Lord Almighty, did they both bring it? So fully in agreement. And I kind of feel like it's slim pickings, but would you be in agreement that AEW probably the stronger promotion across November?
I think so.
Probably not business wise, but
not business wise.
At least in terms of the
match
output.
Quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. We can't have nice things. But that is it for now. Thank you very much for listening. We are figuring out, going to do kind of similar, hopefully, to last year, a end of year show. But we'll kind of let you know about that when those details come out. By the time that you hear this, well, I guess depending on when we kind of get the January shows out, the Game of the Year stuff for Link to the Cast, has been recorded. So the Game of the Year content will start being released from January 1st. So you can look out for that. And we have a couple of like just kind of normal podcasts that we'll be doing between now and then. So do keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, he has been Bryan Rose. I have been Mark Robinson. This has been the Grap Up. And have a very, very Merry Christmas and New Year. And yeah, we'll see you
Yes.
next year.
Yes. See you next year.